Hello, fellow fantasy sports junkies. It is time for MFSN's Waiver Wire Show. I am here with Fantasy Pros expert Andrew Seifter, and, as always, Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I'm going to talk fantasy sports, even waiver wire, with you, cowboy. Even got my James Bond 007 shirt on today because of Sean Connery passing over the weekend, which I'm very upset about. But I'm excited.
Yes, 2020
Dan, to talk
continues
about
to
I'm
give.
excited about quarterbacks. Today, I'm excited.
That's good. That's good. And I like the...
What a change from
like
other times when you're not excited.
I'm not excited, but I'm excited about quarterbacks. I have a whole new theory what I'm doing now because it's week 9 coming up. I think we got a little more strategy going on. If you want to win
November.
your league. Yes, November.
All right, wait. So tell us what this strategy is. How are things adjusting at this point that you're changing your tune? Are you going to pick up a bunch of bye week quarterbacks like I tell you to?
There's no bye week. So what I did was, I picked quarterbacks that I don't think are taken in your league, that are under 50%. And I looked at the schedule, what's coming up, and just see if it's worth taking these guys. So the first one on my list, I looked at the schedule, and it's like a joke who they're playing. It's like, hold on, I wrote it down. That's how excited I am. I never come prepared. But the first one I'm taking is David Carr. He's playing the Jets, then he plays the Falcons, Chargers twice, and Kansas City. I mean, he has like an easy schedule. And
this week he's got the Chargers.
Yards. What? Chargers twice.
Yeah. And the Chargers are such an overrated defense. I actually fell for it myself a little bit, but they just don't get it done.
Horrible.
I mean, they've had injuries.
I mean, they lost to Drew Lock at the end. It was
They
insane.
gave up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Unbelievable.
That's why David Carr is my number 1 this week,
Derek
because
Carr.
of the schedule. And if you need a quarterback coming up,
don't take David Carr. He's like 10 years older.
Raiders are playing the Jets
retired.
next, so it's a pretty good bet. So
I'm with you, Ross. I have Derek Carr also.
Oh, I'm sorry. I always get the brothers mixed up. It's my bad.
Yeah. Well, Derek is the one that's better at football and still playing. So he has a couple things going for him. But yeah, I mean, I've talked about Derek Carr on this show before. I'm a fan. I mean, he disappointed this last week, but with the weather conditions in that game in Cleveland, and also Henry Ruggs, I mean, he's going to be a good player, but he really blew what should have been a touchdown catch in that game. He didn't get his feet down. It's pretty standard wide receiver protocol to make that play. So, it wasn't a great game for Derek Carr, but he's still pretty much, head and shoulders above, I think, the other options that are available in 50% of Yahoo leagues right now. So he's my top choice as well.
But I'm gonna make a counter argument. Derek Carr he's in my top 3, but I actually didn't know where to rank him. And here's why. Because there's 3 different reasons that I think you're looking for a quarterback at this point. Let's say you suffered some catastrophic injury to your starter. I guess the starter suffered the injury, not you.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
We suffer
with our players.
Hopefully he was not your starter. But if you're looking for an upside play, it's Tua all the way. He's 32% owned. Now, next week, I'm not thrilled with him this week. He's at Arizona. He's got some learning curve, so I don't think he's going to be great this week. But if you're looking for that big,
let's just be clear about this though. He was really bad in that game.
I agree.
I saw a stat that the Dolphins averaged less than 10 yards per drive in that game, and that's the first time all season that any team in the league has averaged less than 10 yards per drive. So. They won the game handily because of their defense and their special teams. Defense. But Tua has a steep learning curve. I think it looks like. He made my list. I see what you're saying, Dan. I think there is value, especially if you have another starter or stashing. But
I'm debating between him and Carr is the one that has good upside and solid floor. So I think he is the number 1
and good matchups, as Ross said too. Yeah.
Yeah, coming up. But see, that's the thing.
Schedule.
I know, but sometimes you're looking for a matchup just this 1 week. Like if you're only going to start him,
but I think the Chargers have given up the 7th most points, fantasy points to quarterback. So it's actually a pretty good matchup, I think.
Chargers, Jets, and they play the Falcons too. The Falcons are one of the worst defenses in the league in passing and rush in rushing.
There's no question. They have barely any.
Their schedule. If you need a quarterback. let's say you have a quarterback that's not performing. Let's say you have, Lamar Jackson, I'm putting on that list. I'm putting Lamar Jackson on that not performing list because I feel he's usually a first or second round pick.
I'm not gonna play Derek Carr over Lamar Jackson. But
all I'm saying is right now is I would look at the matchups. And if you guys,
well, I just think with the rushing that Lamar gives, he's an automatic top 10 quarterback, even when he plays poorly like he did last week.
I agree with that, but here's my point. If you've already had your starting quarterback on bye, and you're not really looking to start anybody necessarily, Carr is a solid pickup, and Tua may have a steep learning curve, but he also could click into place. He may
it
have been
could, but the question is,
first game.
It could, but the question is why do you need to stash a backup quarterback in a one quarterback league, and in a super flex league he's already rostered. So I don't know. I guess I see the upside, but I think the vast majority of our viewers are probably looking for a quarterback to stream as opposed to a high upside guy to stash. Well,
that could be, but you make the argument that this is around the time we should start trying to acquire handcuffs.
Well,
in a way, he'd be a handcuff.
Okay,
well, if your starting quarterback isn't that great, maybe, but yeah.
Guys, let me tell you my number two. Let me tell you my number two quarterback this week because of schedule. And again,
it's the same as mine.
We talked about this isn't the reason. This isn't a guy that you would start every week. It's just a guy that would fill in, but you never know. My second guy is Kirk Cousins.
Me too.
Same with me.
Kirk Cousins. Are you insane?
No, same with me.
His schedule.
It's the matchup.
His schedule is Detroit, who can't cover at all. The Bears, pretty good at defense. Then they have Dallas, Carolina, and Jacksonville, all in that order. That's like losers road. They're going to score 30 points a game.
To quote you, if you have to start Kirk Cousins for a month, you're already screwed.
All I'm saying is, if one of your big quarterbacks has a tough matchup with a great defense, let's say a Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or even like a Tampa Bay, I may think about Kirk Cousins.
I don't really think there's really a lot of quarterbacks here you're going to want to start for more than 1 week. I think we're mostly talking to people who have their starting quarterback on bye this week. So, for example, I have Carson Wentz in one league because I had Dak Prescott and he got hurt. So I picked up Derek Carr last week just to make sure I would have him for this situation. I think there's a pretty steep drop-off, frankly, from Derek Carr to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has barely been a top 25 quarterback in fantasy this year. I wrote about this in my column last week. I think he's a little bit overrated because his receivers are so good. So a lot of time people naturally assume if you've got two receivers who are putting up like top 12 numbers, your quarterback's got to be good too, right? But unfortunately, that's not really true because they don't have anyone else producing.
He's also just not overrated. He's overpaid. He's $40 million a year, which is a lot more money than Dr. Dan Ratner makes. Just so everybody knows.
It's definitely overpaid.
He's the highest paid.
Did you audit me? I don't know.
Not yet. I will. Don't worry. Ross the Boss will do that soon. What I'm saying is this. He is way overpaid. But I agree, he's a backup guy.
Yeah, I think you can hold your nose and play him against Detroit for a week, and it won't kill you. But I
think he's
if
a
you can
solid
get Derek
matchup
Carr,
for
I think
1
you
week.
get
But
Derek
there you go.
But I
Thanks,
agree.
Doctor.
I think Carr is above Cousins, but I do have Cousins second, and I have Tua third. But I'm telling you, if he wanted a long-term play, that's the way I'd go. Let's mention just a couple others.
Let's hear,
and then we'll move on. So first of all, we have to mention that Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt. And so Mullins is coming in for the next 6 weeks at least.
Right.
I'm not saying he's a priority pickup, but he's certainly got to be on the radar for.
I actually have him third. Yeah, I have him third.
Okay.
Above Tua because
I have him fourth because you've got Rivers is. I think he's finally starting to click a little bit in Indy, but he plays Baltimore this week. It's just
exactly. You're just saying exactly what I was going to say, Dan. I have Rivers fourth and Tua fifth. Again, if you have that specific circumstance where you want to go ahead and grab him. But in terms of streaming, I think Mullins is a better play than Rivers just based on the match. Green Bay is not a great matchup either. But Nick Mullins actually was pretty good in 2018 when Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt. He averaged 285 yards per game in his 8 starts and threw 13 touchdown passes. So those aren't bad numbers for a guy. I think for those of our viewers who play in super flex leagues, he's a great ad because, all these other guys are already rostered, but he's probably on the waiver wire in most of those leagues. So he's a guy that you can get and plug in as your QB2 in those formats and, use him, especially if you're a Garoppolo owner, but really if you're just anyone that needs a QB.
There's one person you didn't say that if I needed a quarterback this week, I might start him just because of the thrill factor, rookie, Pac-12 guy. They're playing Houston, Jake Luton. I love Jake Luton this week. He's a rookie, plays for Jacksonville. I feel he's going to have a good game. I don't know. I get that feeling. I don't know why. He's playing Houston. It's going to be a shootout, high scoring. Both teams have bad defenses.
I disagree. Here, you take Jake Luton. I'm taking the Houston defense. We'll see who comes out.
Okay,
that
sounds. All right, a bet. Write that down, Doctor. You got it.
All right, hold on. I'll write it down. But listen, I just wanted to note one thing. Andrew said something that I think is really key for waiver wire in general, especially when you don't know who to pick up. Sometimes it is key to look a week ahead. So Andrew picked up Derek Carr, who I almost called David Carr. It's becoming a theme. He picked him up a week early. Sometimes you want to do that. So maybe if you're not sure who to pick up and you don't have many needs, take a peek ahead. See if you need something next week.
That's what the boss did. The boss looked at schedules 6 weeks out.
Yeah.
That's what I did for you.
No, well,
I did the homework. That's what I do.
And Dan, let me take that trick one step further real quick for you. If you're in a Yahoo league, or I think Sleeper allows this too, some other providers, you can have a player on your bench and then cut them after their game. So that's actually how I picked up Derek Carr. Was I had an extra player on my bench that I was going to cut anyway, and he was in a later game, I believe. So I just you grab him that way. So that's another thing you can do.
Especially if you have somebody on your bench who underperformed and you're ready to cut bait. Okay, let's move to running back, where I have a shocker for you. You ready?
Yeah.
My number one pick is a New England Patriot.
Oh,
I can't believe it.
You got Damian Harris.
Damian Harris is my number one pick. I did not see it coming at all. But first of all, he performed very well last week.
100 yards, touchdown.
Yep. Second 100-yard game he's had.
Yep.
Even so, I'm not huge on him because he's not a guy who's going to catch a lot of passes. He's in the Patriots. But there are two things that he has going for him that are different for me. One is he's playing the Jets. The other is that, so I think game flow is also going to factor in, but the other is that the Patriots are a really different team. I don't think we know what to expect as much from Belichick with a 2-5 team or 2-6 team. I forget what their record is, but it ain't good. And so I don't know that we know what to expect. So, and here's the other thing. There were a lot of question marks on this list. There's some good players, valuable players, but if I'm looking for a 1-week plug-in, I actually think Damian Harris has the most upside.
Well, I have Damian Harris second. I have someone else that I think is miles ahead of him personally. But just on Damian Harris real quick, I will say I agree the matchup is perfect. I think he's going to be a very matchup-dependent player because if the Patriots are like ahead in a game, they're going to run the ball a lot, and he's their early down between the tackles runner at this point because Sony Michel's on IR, and he's probably not getting that job back anyway. But if they fall behind and they have to pass a lot, like you said, he has virtually no role in the passing game. Absolutely. So he's going to have some dud games when they fall behind in games. But this week against the Jets, he's actually I'll probably have him maybe in my top 20 running backs for the week.
Wow.
So I think he's a good play for this week. But the guy that I think could be a huge difference maker if things align is Jordan Wilkins with the Colts, who emerged on the scene. Jonathan Taylor, for all the hype he's gotten, especially in dynasty and keeper circles, is ranked near the bottom of the league in missed tackle rate among running backs. And know who's near the top of that list?
Who?
It's Jordan Wilkins. So he's been very successful running the ball whenever he's gotten a chance. We know the Colts can run the ball very well. They have a history of producing good running backs. He's a guy I actually stashed in dynasty last week.
I'm about to trade for
as a handcuff, hoping that if an injury struck Taylor, he could be valuable. But it turns out it doesn't even need an injury. He just outplayed him, and now he could be ahead of him on the depth chart. So, Nyheim Hines is a pass catching back. He had a big game too, but I wouldn't chase those numbers. The numbers I want to chase are the guy that's going to be running the ball for the Colts, and I think Wilkins could be that guy as much as it's going to make people's minds bleed.
Well, I do have Wilkins second, but I wasn't quite as sure what to make of it. You have just set me straight, and now I'm going to trade for him right now. So
Good.
talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, why
All
not?
right.
I mean, there's no time like the present. Okay,
Yeah.
Ross, who's your number one?
I agree with you guys. I had Wilkins 1, at Harris 2. 3, I watch Red Zone, as you guys know. I was watching this running back for the Chargers, Troymaine Pope from Jacksonville State. And this guy can catch the ball. He runs so hard. And he got a little hurt in the fourth quarter. Some guy hit him with his helmet, and he had a little concussion. I think he's okay. But long story short, I like this kid. I think he'll get the ball more coming up in the next few weeks. We'll see what happens. But Troymaine Pope, I love the name. Troymaine Pope, he's my number 3. And
that Chargers situation has been driving me crazy.
Joshua Kelly is off my list.
Well,
I'm done with
he
Joshua.
was the
bring
one.
his name up anymore. Joshua Kelly
he was better. He was the one last week that had the best game. So
Joshua
it was
Kelly's
Justin Jackson, and then Justin Jackson actually had a really good game this week.
He did have a good game.
So I don't know. And Austin Eckler is going to be back
unreliable.
soon. Austin Eckler is going to be back soon.
I think this Troymaine Pope is going to emerge as the number 1 back. That's my prediction.
Let me ask this.
That's a hot take, my friend.
Thank you.
That is what is it about the LA teams that make their running backs just completely worthless?
I don't know.
I mean, my position all along is I felt like there could be one back other than Austin Eckler who could have value in that situation. The problem is it's a different back every week. You know, it was Justin Jackson, it was Joshua Kelly, then it was Justin Jackson, then it was Joshua Kelly again, and then it was Troymaine Pope, you know, so it's like, it's just, you can't keep up with this. So I went in a different direction. I know you don't like the Ravens running backs, you said, Ross, but actually with Mark Ingram out, they both had very good games. Dobbins, of course, is over 50% owned already, but Gus Edwards is not. And
you guys remember I mentioned him. He was my
I did too.
I should have gone with him first.
I hate that situation though.
Yes, I did. I actually rostered him as well and played him last week. So I collected his fantasy points that he provided.
Him keeper, but,
he's no. I mean, I think that my position on this all along has been 3 running backs split evenly 3 ways does not work for fantasy, but 2 running backs on a team that can run the ball like Baltimore does. That's what I've been saying all along. And Gus Edwards actually is, believe it or not, still slightly ahead of Dobbins in the pecking order there. So I like him a lot for however long Ingram is out. And then when Ingram comes back, who knows? Maybe they shift it up a little bit because their offense had been kind of stagnant with the 3 running back situation. So maybe they'll actually let
Ingram
Edwards.
is on the way out.
Guys, there's this running back that plays for Minnesota that had like 4 or 5 touchdowns last week. Is he picked up in all the leagues?
Yeah, pick up Dalvin Cook. Yes, right away. Rush to your waiver wire.
He is available in, I believe the number is 0% of your leagues.
But, this is a really interesting running back week, I think, actually, because there's just there's been so many injuries in running backs, and there were so many unclear situations. Like last week with that San Francisco-Seattle situation, it was a late game, and no one knew who was going to be the running back for either team. It was just
DJ Dallas.
A complete headache. Yeah, so I have DJ Dallas.
Now we have the Packers also, who just all have COVID.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Aaron Jones can be back. If not, I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, they have. Can they call up Dexter Williams from the practice squad? But yeah, no. My fourth is Gus Edwards. My third pick actually is JaMychal Hasty with San Francisco. Because Tevin Coleman got hurt again.
I saw that. Coleman's been awful the whole year. Just so you know, his stats have been horrible.
Yeah, and
he's not a good running back. Horrible stats. I would not even start him if he was healthy.
Right, and I'm not crazy about chasing any of the 49er running backs
I like Hasty,
until Mostert's back, but. I mean, it's down to Hasty and McKinnon, and they've kind of been reluctant to use McKinnon very much lately. He played a lot of snaps last week, but he barely touched the ball. It was like 4 touches or something.
He had a touchdown.
So he did have a touchdown, but he only had like 4 touches.
Hasty is also the most like Mostert of any of the running backs, as far as I can see. And I think that's sometimes what you want to look for is.
But nobody's like Mostert. That dude is lightning fast.
Well, remember, guys, they lost Kittle and they lost Garoppolo. They're going to put 9 people in the box. I mean, they lost their weapons.
But Shanahan always finds a way to run the ball.
Yeah,
always.
I know, but still,
I don't know. I think to me, Wilkins and Harris are the 2 that could be like rest of seasons like players you can use. These other guys are more. Hasty. shorter term, but I think Hasty can have short term value. And then DJ Dallas too needs to be rostered. Just we don't know the status of Carlos Hyde or Chris Carson, so if they're both out again, then you have to. I mean, he didn't play that well, but he got those high value touches. He got the goal line work. He got the pass catching work. Solid. So he ended up with a big fantasy day, even though his efficiency was poor. So he needs to be rostered just in case. I mean, maybe one of those guys comes back, but we really have no clue.
All right, how about wide receivers? It was kind of an interesting week for wide receivers too. I ran out of steam towards the end of the list, but the top of the list has some guys I'm really interested in. Who do you guys have?
We talked about him last week actually, and he looked great. And he got the ball. He got a bunch of targets too. It's Corey Davis of Tennessee. He's way under 50%, and I don't
know how, because
I don't either.
He's gone over 100 yards or scored every game.
He's not way under 50%, but he is under 50%.
He's under 48
actually, yeah.
And basically, I feel he's like my number one this week. For that reason, I feel they're getting the ball a lot. Tannehill loves them, and I feel if you need a wide receiver that can just plug in the lineup, which I did last week actually, I did start him in one of my leagues, and he came through over 100 yards, touchdown. He was great, and basically, he's my number one. I don't know who you guys have.
I have him number 3.
I have him number 1 also.
Oh, my yes.
3. I like Corey Davis.
You made the right choice.
Corey Davis's talent has never been the problem with him. It's just been consistency and opportunity, and he seems to be getting those.
But he's getting both this time.
Yeah, but
exactly.
He is. But I do
wonder.
Jonnu Smith.
So we can rip him apart.
Hold on, but Jonnu Smith has been quiet the last couple weeks, and I still kind of wonder if is it going to be a situation where only one of the two between him and Davis can have a good game every week, because we know A.J. Brown's going to get his. So that's why I have him 3. But I agree. I mean, I think this is a top-heavy week for wide receiver, and I like all 3 of my top picks quite a bit. So
who's the first one?
It's no hit on Davis. My first one is Marvin Jones, who I know we had talked about cutting.
You hated Marvin Jones last week.
I know, but Kenny Golladay just injured himself and is going to be out multiple weeks. So we're talking about the number 1 receiver now on the Lions, which has always been a productive role for fantasy. So even though Marvin Jones himself, has been disappointing this season, look what happened last week when Golladay went down. He caught 2 touchdowns. So I think you have to factor in the role there. And Marvin Jones has been a very underrated fantasy player in the past. I was worried he might be washed up this year, but I mean, now he's got so much opportunity. I think I have to take the number 1 receiver for Detroit over the number 2 receiver for Tennessee. So as much as I love Ryan Tannehill,
Dana and I would be picking up Marvin Jones up this week. Who else?
Yeah, and then this guy I think is
Marvin
probably
Jones is the new AJ Green.
Yeah, exactly right. And this guy, I think is largely forgotten at this point because he's been on injured reserve, and I think Dan has him stashed somewhere. He beat me to the punch on him, and that's Alan Lazard with Green Bay. There's a chance I think that he will be back this Thursday. And guess what? Unless the Packers make a big trade for a wide receiver tomorrow, which could happen. But if that doesn't happen, they still have a giant open sign hiring number 2 receiver for Aaron Rodgers, maybe the best quarterback of his generation. So that's a lucrative fantasy opportunity to play that role. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has not cut it. They've thrown to Tanyan more. They've got these other receivers, Shepard and Taylor. I mean, they're no names. Really that job is up for grabs. And Lazard looked like he had it before, so he could step right in and be a wide receiver 3, maybe even a wide receiver 2. So he's a guy you got to pick up.
I also, what I noticed also, I know you guys aren't big fans of him, but Braxton Burgess from the Jets, he had 11 targets. He had 11 targets on Sunday. I know he plays for the Jets. I'm just letting you know he's a slot receiver.
Exactly.
You love those Jets.
I mean,
Jeff Smith, Braxton.
Somebody has to catch the ball in New York. I'll
take Crowder when he's back, maybe, and Denzel Mims. Those are the only 2 I have any interest in.
No, guys, listen. Let's just do the math. If you get 11 targets on the Jets, you are good for 22 yards. I'm just kidding. Okay. No, one of my top pickups, though, this is a little bit of a hunch, but it also, the talent's certainly there, and he's on bye week. But this is a time where you can pick up Jalen Reagor.
Yeah,
I think that he is on the way up. I think he's very much on the way up. I actually have him second because, and again, it depends on what you're looking for. But if you're looking for a guy who could be a real difference maker in your league, this is the time that those rookies really take off.
Yeah, remember I had him pretty high on my list last week, so I love Jalen Reagor. And he's another guy
his stats last week. His stats last week were not particularly good, but I actually watched the game, and the guy looked seriously good.
Well, and he caught a touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
He caught a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and he almost caught another touchdown. So he's getting a lot of quality targets.
Yeah, I agree.
He may have gotten 16 yards, but that's not what it looked like.
Who else do you like?
Well, Mecole Hardman's out there. We
talked about him a lot.
This is a guy we've been chasing a lot.
Well, he had a great game last week.
He had a touchdown. I saw it.
I also Scotty Miller is just such a riddle to me, but I'm putting him on here. I have him number 4.
I just think once Godwin's going to be out, but Antonio Brown's back next week. Godwin might be back next week.
We got Brown coming next week.
I don't see Miller.
It's very crowded, but sometimes I don't see him having a great game. But this is where I ran out of steam towards the back end.
Well,
but I agree with you. Lazard, I'd put above him.
Yeah, I mean, I would like Hardman is all you guys know I love Hardman. I
love Hardman, but he's not reliable. I mean, they have Robert, they have a bunch of guys. They have a lot of receivers in Kansas City.
And Watkins will be back soon, so I think Hardman is going to be very boom or bust unless Tyreek Hill pulls a hamstring or something. Knock on wood. I just traded for Tyreek Hill from Dan, so I hope he stays
available.
Healthy.
No, he's not. He's over 50%.
Andrew and I, cut a deal. I sent Tyreek Hill to him for Robinson, the Jacksonville running back.
Another guy I want to ask you guys about. He plays for Baltimore. Willie Snead for Baltimore. Mm-hmm. He got the ball a lot last week. I watched him. He had over 100 yards.
There's
sold on him,
very few
I just
positions.
Want to get you guys' opinion.
Well, I don't like chasing the stats, but I also, if there's one thing I trust less than Baltimore running backs, it's Baltimore receivers.
Oh, I trust Baltimore running backs way more than Baltimore receivers. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay, I agree with you. One other guy, Sterling Shepard with the Giants.
You almost said Sterling Sharp. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's as good as David
That
Carr.
guy should be a Hall of Famer.
But Sterling Shepard is boring, but he's a wide receiver 3, and he's out there in a lot of leagues.
I also like Darnell Mooney too.
Yeah, the second receiver in the Bears rotation seems a little bit up for grabs. And
I watched him play. I like what he does. Who's next?
We're gonna move to tight ends.
Okay.
I think we need to. So
who wants to go
my
first?
number one, Goddard was my number 1 for a long time. He's finally over 50%. Eric Ebron has taken over as the number 1 for me. They're playing Dallas according to this. Is that
Had a touchdown.
Yes. Well, yeah.
He's not even my top 5 anymore. I think I have him number 4.
Really? Okay. I have him 2. Well, I have a new nomination for who is Dallas Goedert now that Dallas Goedert no longer qualifies, and that's Austin Hooper with the Browns, who is also injured. He had an appendectomy, but he's going to be back after their bye week. They have a bye this coming week, and then he'll be back in week 10. The problem with Austin Hooper, he was great with Atlanta, but he wasn't getting enough targets in that offense this season. But guess what? Now they don't have Odell Beckham Jr. anymore. So there's a ton of targets up for grabs. And Jarvis Landry's not really a prototypical number 1 wide receiver. So I think that they really are going to work Hooper in a whole lot more after the bye. So he's one of those guys that I actually think, Ebron to me will always be like maybe, in that 10 to 14 range of tight ends. Whereas Hooper, I feel like if things go right for him, he could actually be like top 5, top 7 kind of a tight end. So I would rather take the chance if you don't need a starter this week and stash Hooper, and then hopefully you get a good tight end down the stretch.
Well, I have a different guy in mind for that, but we'll get to that. Go ahead, Ross.
So my number 1, you guys all said my number 1 this week is pick up. I'm not quite sure what's happening with his injury reserve stuff, but I think he's eligible to come off it this week, is Jordan Reed, the tight end for the 49ers, because Kittle's out for 8 weeks.
Yep.
Jordan Reed, when he was playing without Kittle, he had like 2 touchdowns. He was awesome.
Yep.
He was awesome. You got to check his status out before you pick him up. I mean, supposedly he's healthy and he's going to practice this week. Just confirm it. I don't know for sure, but Jordan Reed is my number 1 pickup for tight end. I think he's a legit, hear that? Top 5 tight end next week if he plays. That's kind of
I like him too, Ross. I have him as my number 3 tight end pickup behind.
So who's your number 2 then?
Ebron is my number 2.
So Ebron, Ebron is.
Ebron solid. He's gone between 43 and 52 yards in just about every week, 5 of 7 games. He scored this last week, and I think
the only time
that's
he didn't
the place
was when I called him. as my guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could. I think he's not going to be a huge yardage guy. I think 40 to 50 yards is really what you're looking at. But I think he can start scoring more touchdowns than he has been so far. He only has 2 so far. I think he can increase that rate a little bit. And at tight end, that will play because there's just not that many great options.
Another guy I love is Logan Thomas of the team of Washington. I
have him third.
I feel Logan Thomas had a touchdown last time I started him. I feel that they're going to get him the ball more, especially with their quarterback. I think he likes throwing the tight ends. He did last year. So that being said, Logan Thomas is my number 2 over Ebron.
I think he's very underrated. And actually, if you're looking for a long-term play, I might like him more than Ebron. But
can you guys explain the Logan Thomas thing to me? Because I don't really understand why people keep talking about Logan Thomas. I mean, he's never had a big game in his whole career, and like he scored the last couple
you're
weeks.
You're the latest guy talking about Logan Thomas. I don't know.
I'm not a big fan. I mean, I think he's got
Logan
some
Thomas,
metrics
you're
in
not
his
a
favor,
true American. That's coming from Ross the Boss.
He didn't make my list.
Your Americanism is under question.
Okay, are there any other tight ends that we should talk about?
I love Irv Smith, so I'm going to keep mentioning him.
Irv Smith.
I've got him 4. He didn't have a big game this last week, but guess what? He still ran pass routes on a higher rate than he has at any point in the season. So they are using him more in their, like, you didn't see the numbers last week, but it was a weird game. I mean, Cousins only threw like 14 passes or something, so don't overrate that one game. Irv Smith could still be breaking out.
No one's mentioning this guy, and I'm not sure why, but I have Dalton Schultz as my 3rd, and it's because he performed even with Ben DiNucci at quarterback pretty decently. I'm not great. I think we haven't seen what it's like Andy Dalton with him. So I think he has some good performances down the road.
Dallas is just so bad and so hard to watch. I can't even watch them play anymore.
I don't recommend. Schultz, if you're going to pick him up, don't watch. Don't watch.
I'm still out on the secondary passing game options for Dallas. I
don't think of Schultz as so secondary though. A tight end is different than like Michael Gallup,
Schultz
he's not going to get
such a bad situation.
Well, Gallup had 12 targets last week with DiNucci,
but he had Jets targets.
My number 5 is actually Trey Burton.
Trey Burton.
I mean, the thing about tight ends, once you get outside of the top 10 or 12 guys, you're really just looking for like. I think Jeff Ratcliffe talks about this, like 30 yards and a touchdown. And with Burton, you're looking for 30 yards and a touchdown. But the difference is he can actually give you the touchdown rushing.
He's the wildcat. He comes in.
Yeah, so I mean that's a bonus.
Wildcat.
That increases the chances that tight end is going to get that touchdown when they're getting goal line carries. So for that reason, even though he's they've got Doyle and the Mac attack. Mo Alley Cox was back last week too. But I still think Burton is top that depth chart, and they're using.
I love it. No, I love when he comes in for the Wildcat. It's one of my favorite things to watch. That Wildcat it's like they're going to run the ball. They never pass with it, and It's like an obvious up the middle type situation. But some reason they score with it. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right,
okay, all right. How
next? About let's do defenses. My number 1 defense to me is very clear. Actually, the Washington defense has been extremely underrated. And they're facing the Giants, who are playing as we speak, I believe. The game might be over. I don't know. What's happening?
It is 25-17 Bucks.
In any case, they're gonna be tired. They're not very good to begin with. Daniel Jones is a turnover machine, and the Washington defense is underrated. To me, it's that I think you're gonna get double digits out of Washington.
Yeah, you make a good case. I have them number 2. I think it's actually a great week for streaming defenses. There's a lot of lightly owned defenses that have awesome matchups. My number 1, I mentioned them already, is the Houston Texans. I want to go against Jake Luton, a 6th-round pick, making his first ever start. I just think that could be a total disaster. I mean, I don't really think the Jaguars are going to be starting Luton the rest of the season. I think that could blow up in
He went to Oregon State. He's a Beaver. That kid's 6'6". He's the real deal. You'll see Beaver. He'll throw.
He's the next Herbert, huh? Is he going to be the next Herbert? Are you calling it right here?
He's the next Herbert.
The next Herbert is Jacob Eason.
Deal. You guys haven't seen anything.
He's the next Sherbert.
Jake Luton throw the football. It's going to be the. It's
going
to be
Sorbet,
every time you guys say it though, it sounds to me like you're talking about Jay Gluten, and I'm like, who is Jay Gluten?
But my wife is gluten free, so she would not put him on her fantasy team.
Yeah, if you want to be gluten free, don't pick up Jay Gluten.
Yes, yeah.
Or Jake Luton. Either way.
Yeah. But anyway, my point on defenses, broadly speaking, is we can debate these rankings, but really I don't think this is a week where you have to like spend a ton of fab to get that one defense, because you can go with Houston against Jacksonville, you can go with Washington against the Giants, you can go with the Giants against Washington, or you could go with Tennessee against the Bears. That's a good matchup too. Or even Arizona against, against
Arizona's
Tua.
my number one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Arizona's my number one.
I have them number 2.
The one defense that's going to score a lot of points next week, and they're over 50%, but I just got to say it, is Pittsburgh is playing Dallas. I say Pittsburgh at least has 2 touchdowns for their defense. It will hold Dallas probably under 10 points. That's a prediction from Ross the Boss. You heard it from me first. That's
if Danucci plays, I think you're probably right.
Pittsburgh's just going to destroy Dallas.
Yeah.
That defense.
It'll be a rematch of Super Bowl 13, I think. I can't remember.
But yeah, I would be very comfortable with any of those 5 defenses this week.
And Baltimore's playing Indy, and that Baltimore should have a bunch of points against them too.
Okay, we're doing the 90% of
those are all good
defenses.
picks.
99%.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, how about kickers? My number 1 kicker is Ryan Succop.
Me too.
The Tampa Bay. See, I'm learning from Andrew about, I was looking at what kicker is, kicking in a favor.
Who's he playing against?
Favorable weather also matters. Last week on the Hub, I picked Jarvis Landry against the Raiders. We were picking Raiders against the Browns, and then the weather was horrible, and we all were like, "Oh, I wish we could go back in time and not pick those." But Succop is playing at home against New Orleans, and I just think that's going to be.
The Bucs are like 4-point favorites or something. It's got
that's
a pretty high
that's
projected
a great matchup.
point
I agree
score.
with you guys. That's my number 1 also.
Yeah, I really like kickers with a big that are favorites, and with
nice
the
weather,
overall score line, it should be high
domes
scoring.
Are
Good weather, sure, yeah.
Domes are preferred. Denver's
we've got
preferred.
Zane Gonzalez against Miami, I think, is also a good pick.
Arizona State, Zane Gonzalez. I like Zane a lot. That's number 3.
I have him number 2. My number 3 is Gostkowski again against Chicago.
Mm-hmm. I'm going with Jason Myers, number 2 with Seattle. I mean, it's just getting any piece of that offense. I mean, he didn't get a lot of field goals early in the season, but I think that was just flukish. I mean, if they're going to score that many points, like, their kicker is going to be good. So
eventually it translates.
Yeah. So I like him. And then, one thing that's interesting, I think, is often I will align maybe a kicker with a defense, because if I think the defense is really going to shut down the other team, that could create a favorable environment for the kicker to make field goals and play with a lead. So along with the Houston defense, I want Kaimi Fairbairn with the Texans, because I think they're going to just completely steamroll the Jaguars.
Say his name again. I didn't quite hear it. What's his name?
Yeah, see, I don't want to pick
Fairbairn.
him up. I don't want to have to say his name, so I just don't.
I love
how
they're
going to steamroll the Jaguars, so I think he can kick like 4
That's
field
a good
goals
one
or
too,
something.
guys. Let's talk about people. Let's say I have a crowded team and I want to pick some people up. Who should I just waive on my team?
It's time for cuts. Yes.
Can you guys name the person that's the most highly owned that you think can be just done away with?
Let's say somebody over 50%. It can't be like Joshua Kelly.
Okay.
It can't be Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, I was just saying we could start with the most highly rostered one.
Let's say I put a waiver thing in, and I need to waive somebody, and I have a really strong team.
Well, listen. Let me ask this though: Are we talking about taking a little bit of a risk to cut some? Where it's
have a team.
No, not a risk. I'm just saying, like,
not
this
a risk.
Is, like, I have one guy that's 90% rostered that I would be totally fine cutting.
Who is it?
And that it's Matt Ryan with the Falcons. He has only thrown for multiple touchdowns in 3 of his 8 games this season. That's just not going to cut it. I mean, he just hasn't been good. And given that if you play in a single quarterback league where there's always going to be interesting quarterbacks on the waiver wire,
that's a good point.
I just don't think. Yeah, I mean, he plays Denver this week, and then the next week, I believe, are they on bye the next week? They are. So I mean, you're probably not going to want to hold them through the bye week anyway. So why not? If you have a different quarterback you like better than Ryan this week.
Who you were talking about?
So I'll do 2 because the seasons. Both these guys were announced today that they're not going to be playing basically the whole season. It's Kittle and Garofalo. And if your team doesn't have like one of those injury reserve thing, it's not a dynasty or a keeper league. I would waive both those guys. They're done for the season. No
well,
reason to keep them
I
on
would
the
actually
roster.
hold Kittle until we know for certain he's out for
8
the
weeks.
season.
It's 8 weeks. He's
Yeah,
not
but
gonna
even
be
if he,
good.
but even
No,
if
but
he
you could
came
just
back
wait
in
a
week
couple-
16, I mean, I would want, I would want to hold him until I know for certain he's out for the season because he is such a
Let me tell you
huge
something
difference
about football
maker.
players. If week 16, if the Niners will not be in the playoff hunt, they'll be out of contention. He'll take the rest of the season off to make
You
sure
might be right, but I think we'll know that. I think we'll know that
so
before.
that's what
week
I would do.
16.
I'm just saying what I would do if I needed to waive somebody on my team. Garoppolo or Kittle would be gone. I don't think it doesn't
Okay,
make sense.
I'm going to keep saying this. Do not cut Le'Veon Bell, but by the end of the season, you'll wish you had because he's just going to be useless the entire year.
Okay,
I agree. He's got too much upside to cut. But so here's another guy that I would maybe think about cutting, but except it's the problem.
You have
is he's
to
a
cut
tight
him. You
end
have to cut this guy.
Oh, you have to cut him?
Marvin, but pick up Marvin Jones.
All right. Well, I mean, I have like Michael Gallup, Debo Samuel.
That's a good one. Gallup's a good one.
13% of people listened last week. I said he should be cut. He was at 78% owned. He's now at 63%. I also would totally cut Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram is now 66% owned. So those are my top.
I have two other running backs that I would cut before Mark Ingram.
I'm listening. Who?
Well, James White, because I just don't think Cam Newton throws to the
I have
running
sent him
back.
for 4 straight weeks.
I think the big. I like
right.
James White as a player, but the problem is, Tom
I like
Brady.
him as a person.
Well, he does seem like a really good person too. But Tom Brady had a great connection with him. Cam Newton, I just don't think throws to the running backs very often. He's more throw it deep down the field or run with it himself. So
Tom Brady's not throwing to James White anymore. I don't know what it is. Maybe. He's in a whole different state. That's the problem.
He's in Tampa Bay.
Brady has a good arm, but it's not.
And then another guy.
Would you guys get rid of Russell Wilson or keep him? Yes or no?
I would hold on to Russell Wilson.
He's kind of a Dalvin Cook for me. I'd probably keep him.
Yeah. The other running back I would be okay dropping is Adrian Peterson, who I've mentioned before. I just think his role is really evaporating. Kerryon Johnson outperformed him last week.
I saw that.
That's the end of the line for AP.
Name.
How far Purple Jesus has fallen? He's now silver. And
he's not even close.
Blue non-Jesus. Silver and blue Lazarus.
You know what else? I was thinking about cutting. I just don't have the guts to do it, but I would just love to do it because I hate Dallas so much. Is Armani Cooper? Just because he's not getting any.
He'll be fine when Dalton's back.
The last game he played, he had like 9 yards.
But that was
let me ask you about one more. And I would not recommend cutting Amari Cooper no matter what. But
I know.
I understand what you're saying. But here's another. This is not somebody I recommend cutting. I'm just saying it's an interesting discussion point. Evan Ingram is 78% owned, and the Giants just suck.
I'm with you. I actually had him on my list. I have he hasn't gone over unless he did tonight.
He's my highest percentage guy that I was considering.
He hasn't gone over 65 yards
I wouldn't even
in a
have
game.
on my team to begin with, just so you guys know. It's total waste.
Ingram hasn't gone over 65 yards in a game all year. I actually have a long list of tight ends. These are tight ends. If you have one of these guys, you should maybe just play the match or try to get the hot hand at tight end and not.
I agree.
Not worry about these guys.
I'd rather start.
Let me do the list though. Let me do the list.
Smith.
Yeah. So Tyler Higbee. I mean, it's just not happening. They're not using him.
He has a hurt hand. He's not healthy, just so you know. But go on.
Well, but they also just don't have a role for him as a pass catcher.
Him and even Everett too.
Goff. Goff threw like 61 passes last week, and he still didn't do well. Mike Gesicki. Especially with Tua now. It wasn't happening for Gesicki before. He gets.
I like Gesicki too.
He's so inconsistent though. He basically has like 3 games with 0 yards, and then he goes off for 100 yards. You can't rely on that at all.
You might hold him though if they bring back Fitzpatrick.
With Fitzpatrick, I would like him better, but I don't think they're going to do that. They're going to give Tua a chance.
And
then
it's
Jimmy
hard,
Graham.
They're winning.
Jimmy Graham has gone over 34 yards once this entire season.
He catches touchdowns. All the guy does is catch touchdowns.
No, he has 4 touchdowns this year, but he hasn't had them the last couple of weeks. It's
a
wing and a prayer
with
Jimmy Graham.
Listen, Jimmy Graham, he catches touchdowns, but the other thing that he does is not catch touchdowns.
Yes.
That also happens.
Yes.
It also
happens. I mean, my point is with all these guys, with Higbee, Gesicki, Jimmy Graham, Zach Ertz is somehow still over 50% rostered. I think that's just because people stash him on their IR, but even that, I mean, it's not. Don't even waste an IR spot on him.
There's a lot of players who just aren't paying enough attention, and they're like, Zach Ertz, he's going to be great, when he's back. And
but all these guys, I would much rather have Austin Hooper, Eric Ebron, Jordan Reed even. So,
Hurst, I like their Hurst kid in Arizona.
I'd rather have Logan Thomas than a lot of these
I love
guys,
Logan Thomas, too.
And then some other
Logan Thomas
Jordan Reed is my number one pickup this week on tight ends, and I have a feeling if he plays, he's going to have a big week.
Did you guys mention T.Y. Hilton? Because he's definitely.
He was what?
Okay. And then
he actually went up 1% last week because everybody thought he was going to.
Now he's injured too, so now he's definitely gone.
He's hurt 2 catches, 9 yards last week. I picked him as the sleeper.
I know you sealed his fate with that. And then one other quarterback you can definitely move on from now is Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he had some nice matchups, but now this week he gets the Chiefs, who as I've talked about before, they're weak against the run, strong against the pass. I think he gets Tampa Bay after that, which is also a brutal matchup. So Teddy Bridgewater is not a good enough quarterback to use in bad matchups.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a streamer and they have bad matchups the rest of the way through the bye weeks, then they're wasting a spot on your roster.
Okay, guys. So we're halfway done with the season. I'm excited. You're excited. Everybody's excited.
I thought you were going to say we're halfway done with the waiver wire show. That would be interesting. What do we do
more
next?
Than halfway done with the waiver wire show.
Who are the players that you want to drop and then pick up again? Marvin Jones, AJ Green. Who else?
Joshua Kelly.
Just see
Joshua Kelly, Teddy Bridgewater, you name it. We want to do it. Unbelievable, but this is a crucial week for your team, actually. So make sure you pick and choose your players wisely when it comes to waiver wire.
This is a crucial point. This is a big turning point in the season. It's Andrew often talks about the early season and the later season. We're turning over here.
And these are just the most important bye week. There's so many bye weeks going on right now. So your waiver pickups for streamers are more important this time of year than any other time of the season.
Good point. All right, guys. This has been MFSN's Waiver Wire Show. We've gotten you the picks. Rush to that waiver wire. Make your claims tonight. It's time to pick them up. Watch the Waiver Wire Show next week, and we'll tell you who to pick up again.
Subscribe to our show too, please. Thank you. I'm Ross the Boss, and I love talking fantasy sports.
Oh my God! Ross the Boss said, "Please." You know, he does not mean please.
Do it.
Get it done. Do it.
Lying with a blanket over my head, she asked if she could see.